I'm Nathanael. I have an academic background. I'm also civil engineer in applied mathematics and physics from Polytechnic School Brussels and from École Centrale Paris. I've worked for 10 years at the university in the academics as a researcher in IT, in artificial intelligence, and then I moved to the technology transfer, and I was responsible for the technology transfer related to the Brussels region at the Brussels University for 6 years. And I joined the Brussels Enterprise Agency in June 2012, so 10 months ago, as the director of the innovation department. Okay, so we have many entrepreneurs here, potential entrepreneur. That's great. There is no recipes to create a spin-off. Huh? Okay, I hope I will not disappoint you, but there are many models, huh? not one recipe. So what is the agenda? Just to...
Nathanael.
Okay. Yeah. Does it work? Okay. 1 or 2 minutes about knowledge transfer. Do you know what it is at the university, the knowledge transfer? Okay, we'll talk about that. Then SpinOff Creation and the different steps toward the creation of a spin-off from the research results. And then we will talk about some innovation trends that can maybe, I hope so, inspire you in finding new ideas. So, what is knowledge transfer? So, this is one schema. You have at the university many researchers that do research. They are funded by regional funding, by European funding, and they do applied research, they do more fundamental research, and from this research we've got some results. And the first question we have to ask is it possible to protect the intellectual property related to these research results? I will explain that later. So, in Belgium and in many countries in Europe, I don't know exactly how it is in Bucharest, we have a technology transfer office. The technology transfer office has to watch at the research results and apply for patents if there are some research results that can be commercialized. And there are two ways to commercialize research results. Either license it to existing companies, either create a new company, and we call it a spin-off company. And for the university, it means that from the research, you can have back some money through the commercialization of the research results. Top universities are top value creators, but this strategy varies. Okay, so here you have a paper from the Science 2008, and you can see that Stanford University and MIT apply for approximately 400 to 500 patents a year. But they have different strategies. Some do license it, some license more, and MIT, for example, do prefer create spin-off companies. Do you know MIT? Yes. Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and Stanford University. Okay. Do you know Google? Yes. Of course. Okay. Yeah, so you do know that it's a research result from the AI lab at Stanford. So, SpinOff Creation. AI lab does mean artificial intelligence lab. So, the first question when we are talking about creating a spin-off is what is your project? Because there are various kinds of company project and there are various kinds of spin-off project. So you can sell product, you can sell services, you can create a company to live in that company for 10 years or 20 years, or you can create a company in order to sell it to another company, a bigger company. So there are different kinds of projects, and it is really important to understand what is your project. Okay, so it's difficult to say there is one business model. It's difficult to say there is one path through creating a spin-off company, but we often see the same steps in all this spin-off creation. So what are the main steps? So, as I told you, there is the research. Then we ask the question of protecting the research results, and we will see that there is different way of protecting them. The patents are one way, but there are other ways. Then there is a step that is often neglected, that is the proof of concept. There is a difference between a great idea that could have some potential and to make it real. This is the phase of proof of concept. We will discuss about that. Then, if you have proven the feasibility of your idea, the technical feasibility, but also the business feasibility of your idea, you have an opportunity and you will write a business plan. Do you know what it is, a business plan?
Yes.
So the fourth, the fifth, and the sixth steps here are not sequential, okay? We can have the license negotiation before ending the business plan. You can have fundraising negotiation in parallel with the licensing negotiation. And the last step is the spin-off creation. This is the last step, but it is also the first step, because as you know, when you have created the company, it all begins. And we have different actors that can help at the different steps. In the Brussels University, you have the research department that helps researchers to find money for their research. Then, to apply for the patent, you have the technology transfer office that can help. Then, for the proof of concept phase, you have two kinds of actors. The TTO can find some financing to do the proof of concept, but we find also incubators. Do you know what incubators are? Yeah?
Is there a difference between incubators and the spin-off?
Yeah. Okay, an incubator is an infrastructure where you can find many spin-off or already existing spin-off that works together and that mutualize their infrastructure. So it's an ecosystem where you have many startups working together, and it's really interesting for this new startup because they share knowledge and they share infrastructure, so that it's less expensive for them to be there, and they can have some advice too, because there are some people in the incubators to help them, to give advice, to give them some contacts if they need, and so on. Yeah, the incubator is the first stage of... yeah, it's only a stage, because when the company grows... Yeah, it's the first step. The license, what is the licensing process? When we apply for IP, in general, the IP is owned by the university. Do you know that? Of course. Huh? Okay, so if you want to create a company and if you want to have the right to exploit the research results, you have to negotiate a license for that. And then the fundraising, you go to an investment fund, you ask your friends for some money, but it's often the case that that is not enough money. So you can go to maybe the region that can give subsidies to go further, but at one moment you need more money. It depends on the project, and you go to a VC. Huh? So for different steps, you have a decision committee that can give decision, and in the Brussels University, you have an advisory committee that is independent from the university that states on the opportunity to apply for a patent or not. Okay, this is the first step and first decision. That states on the opportunity that the business plan presents, and if the business plan is good enough, we go to the investment fund related to the university, and then the investment fund decide if it invests or not in the project. The research phase, at the beginning, you have an idea whether the research is applied or not. So the first thing to do, if you have an idea, is to evaluate the opportunity. You have some people that can help you to do that at the TTO. You have advisors that do know well the market, that do know well the actual trends, and that can help you to define if it is a real opportunity or not. So you will first ask a few questions. Is it a product? Is it a service? What is the market need? It is often the case that researchers find their research results are genius, okay? But in fact, there is no market need. There is no customer pain. So it is important when you are a researcher and when you want to create a company to think maybe in another way that we used to as a researcher. So rather than perfect or invention or product or technology, we will ask as soon as possible to the market what it needs. Another question is, can you protect your idea? Another question is, what human resources and skills you do need for the project? This is a capital question, a really important question. In fact, it is often the case that the researcher is genius as a researcher, is a genius as a researcher, but not as a CEO of the future company. So as soon as possible, it's important to say, okay, my role would be that or that role. Maybe I will be the CTO, the Chief Technology Officer. Maybe I will stay in an advisory board, but I will not be the CEO. I have some skills, but not all, and I have to find and complete my team. And one of the most important key success factors in SpinOff creation, in startup creation, is the ability of the first person that had the idea to complete the team so that they can really develop their idea into a real company. Another question is, what are the financial resources you need and you can access? Okay, and you can access finance at different levels. Maybe at the university in Brussels, we have a valorization fund. So the TTO can decide to give some money to some project. You have regional fund, so you can ask for some regional funds to develop your project. You can ask to, at the European level, to develop the project too, but from the beginning, just evaluate how much resources, financial resources you need, and what are the people you need. Second step, intellectual property protection. So there are various types of intellectual property rights. The patents, the brands. You can ask for software protection. As you know, you can not protect a software as such in Europe by a patent, but you can do it in the United States. But you can apply for some protection on the software, which is related to the authorship. Authorship is also an industrial and intellectual right that you do not have to ask for, that you receive automatically if you have created something innovative, something new, something that nobody has done before. There are many reasons to apply for a patent, but as a researcher, you must know that more and more it's taken into account in your profile. So if you have applied for patents, it's considered as some kind of publication. It's not exactly compared as a paper in scientific journals, but it is taken into account, but for the university too. In the ranking, international ranking of the university, you may know the Shanghai ranking, for example, they do take into account the patent. But that's not the more important reason. One really important reason is that scientific researchers do know very well the prior art in their domain in the scientific paper and journals. But the patent literature is huge, and often it is the case that we develop something that already exists, and it is not a literature that is well known and read by the researcher. So if you have an idea, rather than going further, it's important to see the prior art, to see in the scientific literature, but also in the patent literature. Yeah? A third reason, because some researchers think, okay, I will not enter into commercializing my ideas. Okay, I'm a researcher, I do pure research. It's like selling my soul to the devil, to think about commercializing it. But in fact, it's often a wrong way to think about that. I will give you an example. You have found a new molecule in the pharma domain, in pharmaceutical, a new molecule that can take care of some disease. If you do not protect this molecule, do you understand? Yeah? If you do not protect it, nobody will invest in the development of this molecule, and nobody will profit of that. So it costs 1 billion to start from a molecule hypothesis to a real molecule. You have clinical trials, you have many things to do. Okay, maybe you have some research results on rats, but you will not develop a medicine from that research result. You will first test on patients that have already tested all the known molecules. Okay, so there are different steps and different phases, and to go through these phases, you must invest much money. You do do think about the fact that if you do not protect your idea, maybe it won't be possible to develop it. Just simple as that. And no one will benefit from that. Okay? Okay, the first motivation to create a spin-off should not be to become rich, because it's rare. The university owns the IP rights in general, okay? There are some exceptions to that rules, but it is because in the United States we have had the Bayh-Dole Act, and in Europe we have applied the same kind of rules to say, okay, if you do have some research results and you apply for the patent, the university owns the patent. You can say, okay, it's not fair, but in fact the university will pay also for that. And the university can develop some technology transfer office, some help to go from the ID, the initial ID, to a real company. It's, yeah, you know, an interface, it's a long way, okay? Some studies says that it takes from 4, 5 to 7 years to create a spin-off from the first research results. It depends on the domain, no? Inventors are named, and in general there are some incentive for the inventors. So it depends on the university, but in Brussels, for example, you have a 3/3 rule. It means that if you license the patent to a company, you will have some royalties back, and 1/3 of these royalties goes to the inventors. Okay? 1/3 to the lab, 1/3 to the university in general. Rules are different in Stanford. For example, it's 25% to the inventors, 50% to the faculty, and 25% to the university. Getting IP rights, this is an important message, is compatible with publication. Sometimes researchers believe that they have the choice either to publish, either to protect. The rule is simple. You have to apply for the patent before publishing. But in this case, you can be protected. Okay? You cannot ask for protection after having said to everybody, okay, I have a good idea that is that and that and that. Okay? So protect first and then publish. So the patent procedure is in fact more than just applying for a patent. It can last for 5 years, for example, in average. So you have a prior application and you have a priority date. Then in a common procedure, 12 months later, you can ask for an international protection. Then at 18 months, the application is disclosed. So for time 0 to 18 months, nobody knows that you have applied for a patent. And then after 30 months, you can decide where you will finally ask the protection in each national region. Minor do agree with your application, you will be granted the patent after 5 years. In fact, there exists accelerated procedure, but nobody uses it. Why? Because it costs much money for each of these phases. Yeah, for the prior application, it depends on the length of the patent and on the services you need to apply for that. But you can count for 10,000 euro for a prior application. Okay? It's approximately the same for the international application, so 10,000 euro. But when you enter national phase entry, depending on where you want to have the protection, for example, I want the protection in Belgium, and I want the protection in South Africa, and I want the protection in the United States, you can go up to 150,000 euro, for example. And then you have to pay each year to maintain the patent. Okay? So it costs much. If you have questions, I can talk about patents for hours, but okay. So the proof of concept phase. There often exists a gap between an academic proof of concept and the first industrial prototype. So if you can make this industrial proof of concept, you lower the industrial risk, which is very positive when you ask for money later. And one way to finance that is to create a collaboration with an existing company. So the gap does exist at many levels, but it's the gap between academic and the industry. There are some countries like the United States where the gap is very narrow, and in Europe, traditionally, the gap is more large. So there are many definitions, in fact, of the proof of concept. So I have listed here different definitions. To me, what's the most important is the third one. So the proof of concept is defined as evidence that demonstrates that the business model or idea is technically feasible and economically viable. So this definition integrates the proof of concept, the feasibility, and the proof of business. So the fact that people want to use it, it corresponds to a customer pain and are ready to pay for that. So here you have on the Deshpande Center of Technological Innovation of MIT the reason why the innovation gap does exist. It's a question of fear of risk, of reduced funding at this level of risk, and disconnection between academia and marketplace. So, as we say in Europe that the gap does exist, the United States made the same statements too. And they developed some proof of concept fund to bridge the gap. At the European level, you have also proof of concept fund that are more and more developed, new initiative, even related to the most fundamental research like ERC grant, for example. So with an ERC grant, you can have a proof of concept grant to develop a prototype. This is one case I used to manage. So we had a groundbreaking technology for secret key generation based on the laws of quantum physics. And it was fully experimented in the lab. And the technology was used in the lab to solve emerging problems of security in the cloud. Okay, it's a distributed memory and distributed processors, storage capacity and processor for computers. So the idea is you do not need a processor or capacity memory on your laptop. You can just, like you need electricity, you can just ask for the cloud to provide you for data storage or process capacity. It means that it becomes a commodity. Yeah, do you understand? It's an evolution of the business model that you do not have product anymore, but you have integrated solution to your problems. So I need some capacity storage, and I need to have access to my data everywhere, and I need to have some process capacity, but sometimes much and sometimes not much. Okay, so it's variable. I do not need to have a processor on my laptop. I just need to ask for services that gives me more process capacity if I need it, or less if I don't need it. Now, in contrast to software, hardware development requires much more resources. So in this case, it was an hardware prototype. So potential customers were skeptic whether the testable industrial version appliance. Okay, so it's an hardware that you put in the cloud to securize the data. Okay, the solution was to develop a prototype, not too costly, and we just developed a box that we put in the data center with another technology in the core. Another technology just to check that the prototype and the idea was feasible. Fourth step, the negotiation of the license. So as I told you, the license is a contract that allows the future spin-off company to exploit commercially the invention. This negotiation can last for several months. So what do you find in the license contract? You have non-financial terms, like the domain, what are the possible applications, because you can have patent on a huge and large technologies, and specify in the license you can apply that technology in that field or in that field. You can ask for exclusivity or not, so you can give the company exclusivity to the patent, or say, okay, you can use it on that geographical area, or you can use it, but maybe others can use it too. Do you understand this question of exclusivity or not? And we have a very interesting model, for example, from the MIT Media Lab, where many companies give money to the Media Lab and the researcher do what they want. And if there are some research results, they have a non-exclusive license first refusal right on the license. That means that all the company that gives money to the Media Lab can ask for a non-exclusive license to that technology. And sometimes they are in competition. Sometimes they are in competition, but they pay because, okay, it's interesting for them. And so we have this evolution of this emergence of a new concept, which is co-petition. That means that in the globalized world, companies can be in competition but can cooperate on some aspect to mutualize the cost, for example. In the license contract, you will find the financial terms like the upfront, so you pay a certain amount of money at the beginning. Milestones you will pay at different stage of development of the technology, and royalties, which is the most important and most known financial terms in that license contract. It means that if you sell for 1 million, you give back 3.75% to the licensor. So the license contract is a contract between the licensee and the licensor. The licensor is the university. The licensee could be an existing company or a spin-off company. Okay, the business plan phase, you do know that. Okay, very well. So we have, let's say, 4 parts in the business plan. The first is related to the opportunity. What is the opportunity? Yeah? Okay, it is not enough to be a market opportunity. So you can have an idea. You can have an idea that is feasible, but you don't have a customer need. You don't have a market need. Okay? But even if you have a market need and a technical solution to the market need, and nobody wants to pay for that, you do not have an opportunity. So you have to evaluate the opportunity. That means these three elements at least, and a management team, a team that is really important. So this is the first part of the business plan. The second part will be to define the strategy. Then you will have an operational plan that describes concretely how you do implement the strategy with the production and supply chain, sales and marketing, research, development, and organization and administration. And then you synthesize all that in the financial plan. Okay, if you do, if you go further, you will have a sensitivity and sensibility analysis on the financing chain, and you have a risk analysis plan related to your business plan. Yeah, the SWOT analysis, you do know that is okay. So the SWOT analysis is often used in the strategy part. It means strength, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats. Okay. Yeah, you know that. Okay, so for a situation, for a product, for your company, it's interesting to say, okay, my strengths are, my weaknesses are, so this part is related to the internal organization and the product of the company, okay, strength and weakness. And the opportunities and threats are related to the external world. Okay, so what are the trends that help my project to be developed, the opportunities, and what are the threats? The threats, for example, that you have competitors that have more money than you, more skills than you, so you have some threats that you cannot develop your business. Okay, so the perfect business plan never exists, but here you have a list of what we should expect in ideal world. So a dream team, capable, experienced, committed, adaptable, and trustworthy, a unique offering with a proof of concept, an in-depth market research section, focus on one niche market and strong sales and marketing plan. So this is really important because as a researcher, often we focus on the technology and we want to broaden all the possibilities of our technology, to broaden that. If you do a business plan, it's important to focus, to segment the market and to find a specific niche in order to validate our first hypothesis and in order to be more concrete. Focus on the core business. Okay, it's the question of Google and Yahoo. Do you know the difference between Google and Yahoo, for example? Okay, Yahoo wants to do everything. Huh? So there are a research engine, there is a catalog, there are different various games that were accessible on the first page, and then there were more and more services, and people do not understand what is Yahoo offer. And Google is exactly the opposite, okay? It's just, they develop now new products, but the first page is the simplest possible, okay? It's the entry point to the web, okay? It's the search engine, but it's simplified, completely simplified. Okay. I would like to have some minutes on that canvas. Do you know that canvas? It's from this book. I recommend that you can read this book. It's Business Model Generation by Alexander Osterwalder. And this is a good way to think about your business model. So, simply said, the business model is how do you get money from your activity. But it's not enough, okay? There are different parts of the business model. And when we talk about innovation, it's not only innovation in terms of new product, new technologies, but also in terms of new business model. So how can I get money from the technology, from the customer paying? And an exercise would be to use that canvas and to understand what happens with MEI. Do you know MEI? No? MEI was because it's just been bought by Universal in September, I think. One of the 4 major actors in the music sector. Yeah, in the 2000 years. Huh? Okay. So MEI was producing compact disc, okay, and was one of the 4 in Universal, Vivendi, Sony, and MEI. Okay. So if you do look at this business model canvas, it's a good definition of what is a business model. You have on the left part all that concern the company activity. So what are the key activities? What do we do exactly in the company? What are our key resources? Huh? What are the skills we have? What are the assets we have, the IP, for example? What are our key partners? Because on the value chain, I will choose a vertical niche, a specific niche, and all other aspects I will have some collaboration or partnership to distribute or to manufacture. I do not have to integrate the whole value chain. So the key partners, the key activities, the key resources, and the cost structure. This is related to the functioning, internal functioning of the company. On the right side, you have the client side, okay? So you have the customer segment, okay? What are my clients? And how can I reach my client through different channels? And what is the customer relationship I will create with my clients? This is related to the revenue stream. In the middle, you have your offer, your unique selling proposition, your added value proposition. So what do you exactly offer to your customers? And if you have 5 minutes, I don't know if we have time, I propose you to do the exercise with MEI. So you have 9 places here, and try to put what were the key activities of MEI in the beginning of the 2000s. What were the key partners? What was the value proposition? What were the customer? What was the customer relationship? What were the channels to the customers? Who were the clients? We will do the exercise later. So what is important is if you do the exercise, you will find that the customer relationship is empty, completely empty. And the best evidence is that you do not know MEI. So it was everywhere. They were manufacturers because they do not produce the compact disc. And their focus in their business was to find new artists and to get IP on the production of these new artists. And 1 out of 100 will give some hits that you can sell through the radio, through compact disc, through different channels. But nobody's knew MEI. Do you know Spotify?
Yeah.
Yeah? What is Spotify? You can have an app with Spotify. You can access to the music for free.
In the phone.
Huh?
No on demand. Just radio.
Excuse me? Just to read it.
Just radio in the phone, not on demand.
Yeah, okay, but the idea is you do not have to pay anymore, because between MEI and Spotify growth, we have Napster and exchange of all the music, and people used to get music for free, but it was not legal. And then, okay, a new business model with Spotify that the end user do not pay for the music, okay? So it's really, if you have more time, it's really interesting to do the exercise and to understand that with using this canvas, you can maybe ask questions and say, okay, if my key activities is not that anymore, it changed the business model, and you can do innovation with changing the business model. So, raise money, you do know that. So the financial plan will help you to evaluate, among others, how much money and how much time you need to reach the break-even. And how much do your projects worth. So these are the basics to go to investors and to negotiate. So you do know this typical curve in the financial plan. You burn the cash in the beginning, you reach the debt valley, and then hopefully you reach the break-even after 1, 2, 3 years, maybe more. So you have some parameters like the time to market, return on investment. These are the basics to negotiate with the investors. To go to investors, it's also interesting to go to the presentation Tanya gives you and to have an elevator pitch, okay? To say in 55 seconds what is important. And here is a schema, a proposed schema to an elevator pitch. Huh? So, an opening statement, the product, the solution, your client, who is your client, what is the value proposition related to that. A word about competition, because if you say there is no competition, I'm a genius, it means that there is no market and that you are a fool. The business model, the team, really important. Some people say you must talk about the team at the beginning. The achievement, where you are, your need. So I need 1 million euro and the exit. So you will keep your money back into 2 years with a return on investment of 30%. These are all the elements, you can say it like that, but if you can tell a story, it's better. So I think I've passed through different steps, and I want to show you just not a business model of a spin-off, because it's not possible to have a general course on all the business model possible in a spin-off, but how the ecosystem around the spin-off can behave, or how the ecosystem behaves. So here is an example of Belgian university. You have the TTO that owns 100% of the IP managing company, so all the patents are in this IP managing company. And this IP managing company owns 50% of an investment fund and the other 50% are owned by a public investment fund. And when you have a spin-off, this is below there, when you have a spin-off, the project manager will receive some shares through the IP. The investment fund related to the university will invest from 20 to 40% in cash, conditionally. This is conditioned by the fact that there is a private investors in the spin-off company too. And every university has developed its own schema. It can be more than 40%, for example. Sometimes you do valorize the IP into shares. Sometimes you do not. You only ask for royalties. So this is a general schema you can play with. Yeah, and that is really flexible. So the spin-off creation just say that you have to think really about the shareholder agreement from the start. So everything goes well until we create the spin-off and we say, okay, I thought that was my role. I thought I would have this part of shares. I thought that if we have a second fundraising, we will manage that like that. Okay? It's really important to think about this shareholder agreement. And for sure, the spin-off creation is not the end, it's just the beginning, because then you have early stage growth. I just want to take 5 minutes to talk about innovation. So innovation is invention and commercialization. And as we talk about open innovation, is the fact that before we wanted to have the best researcher within the company, and Procter & Gamble asked to the R&D director, yeah, we have invested so much in R&D, what are our best products? Okay, and the result from this research was, this study was, okay, the majority of our best products come from outside. Okay, so I do not have so much time anymore, but I do propose you to read the book from Chesborough about open innovation. It's really inspiring, and the Xerox PARC case is very interesting. You do know Xerox, photocopiers, okay? So they invent that, and then they realize that if they want to be the first, they invest in research, and they create near Stanford a research park. But they just had a focus on developing their core technology. And in fact, if you see now all the projects that Xerox did not integrate in his pipe, all the company that has been created by former employees from Xerox works now much more like Xerox itself. And that's the beginning of the book of Chessboard. So other trends that maybe inspire you are the crowdsourcing, the fact that we can develop products or ideas in community. An example is the open source development in software, the crowdfunding, the fact that you can ask through the internet people to bet on your project and get money from that. Maybe if you do that, have access directly to the investment fund, it's a good way to raise money. I told you about the product convert into integrated solution, and we have a good example with Peugeot, which is a car manufacturer. and then it develops now mobility solution. So it's not the question of owning a car, but I have to move from one point to another point, and maybe a bicycle is the best solution at that moment. And okay, so it was the case 10 years ago with the big computer company like IBM or HP. They transformed completely their mindset into services. Okay, and the commodities I told you about cloud computing. Thank you for your attention.